order, please. We now have a quorum, so I'd like to get started. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to your Innovation, Grants, Technology, Commerce, and Trade Committee. I am joined by my colleagues, Councilmember Buscaino and Councilmember Krikorian, and I believe Councilwoman Martinez will be joining us soon. Let's start out. Mr. Espinosa, are there any general public comment cards?
Yes, sir, we have one.
Okay. And so we will have that. And we also have, I see we have comment cards on every item. So why don't I handle that first, and then because there's a number of items I want to move on consent, but I want to make sure that we've satisfied public comment. So if I could start with public comment and ask Ms. Antonia Ramirez to come forward, and we'll give you five minutes to cover all the items, and I believe you have a card on every item. So
okay.
It's your choice how you want.
Public comments, is that what you're saying, or?
On the commenting on all of the items on the agenda.
Okay. Let's start with item number one. In order for LA World airports to be more economically competitive and dominant throughout the world, we must first vote for El Jefe, Donald Trump, who will be more than jumpstart the aviation and airline industry. Secondly, you need to fire all your wetbacks and Chango Latino gangbangers and cheap labor. Hire first and foremost United States military veterans and then legal law-abiding citizens who speak fluent English and are highly skilled, professional, and elegant. Stop cutting corners at the expense of tourists and passengers and do a thorough and honest job with integrity. Hence, pilot safety is a priority and healthy, fully paid medical packages for them and their immediate families, which will include inpatient, outpatient visits, and audio, vision, dental, therapy, acupuncture coverage with no co-payments or premiums. Moreover, a healthy, reasonable retirement pension that both a husband and spouse could live on comfortably, and stock selections chosen by the pilots, airline, and financial planners, along with a higher education for either pilots and or their family with zero cost or less than half cost for their children. Lastly, pilots can travel free anywhere around the world at all hotels, and the hotels will give them free stay, and they can get all the butt rubs they want. God knows they deserve it. And public comments. These large corporations need to be more accountable, disciplined, and genuinely more ethical, rather than cheap and predatory in all their business practices. And commerce and trade transactions. Hotels and motels and restaurant industries, i.e. Crown Plaza, Sheraton, JW Marriott, the Hilton, the Holiday Inn, the Ramada, the Roadway Travelodge, Ambassador Inns, where they hire wetbacks and Chango Latino gangbangers to do housekeeping, maintenance, laundry, security, and front desk and cooking, and how they end up stealing items and or go through the people's packages, and then they steal IDs out of your hotel bags, and secretly also install audio and video spyware in your rooms, especially if you're a victim of gang stalkings. These large hotel and motel restaurant chains are a breeding ground for the Latino Chango, racist, hate-mongering wetbacks, and Chango Latino gangbangers who are thieves, pussies, and pigs. Let us therefore overhaul all these hotels and motel restaurant industries and shut them down for deception, fraud, and runaway theft, and unsanitary, unsafe, and not to mention violation of your privacy, and also for committing gross negligence. Thus, let America reclaim its dominant high standards in hospitality, hygiene, cleanliness, elegance, etiquette, politeness, professionalism, vibrancy, courtesy, integrity, objectivity, human dignity, and high-skilled laborers. Stop hiring these illegal gangbangers, and God bless Donald Trump, who will be deporting them at full throttle when he gets voted in. God bless, the man's got balls, especially when he's taking on the cartels, and there is a contract out on him. Yeah, the man's got balls. So having said that, and I want to thank also, because we need people who can speak English. And again, we need fairness, honesty, and safety, and security, and privacy in all our businesses across Los Angeles and America. And again, the only one who can do it, who's got the balls to do it, is El Jefe, Donald Trump. And again, God bless America. God bless Donald Trump and his family. God bless the United States military. God bless Gillespie, daredevil pilots extraordinaire, and God bless all our law enforcement chopper pilots. And having said that, ladies and gentlemen, we have to give our pilots a lot of credit, because if it were not for our pilots and our military pilots and aviators, we would not have trade and commerce in America, and we would go bankrupt. Again, let us thank our pilots. Let us hug them. Let us kiss them, and let us go out of our way for them, because not everybody can fly. I know I can't fly, and God knows I tried. It's not for me. So God bless our pilots and military, and I'm sorry to hear this morning, Officer Graciano, you're always so gracious. Thank you. I just heard that Council Member Rosenthal passed away, and God knows I've been thinking about him for a long time. Now I know why. God bless you, and may he rest in peace. A lovely man who never censored me, never attacked me, and never threw me out. May you rest in peace, sir. God bless you, United States military veteran as well. And two other individuals I've been thinking about is the icons Gene Hackman and James Woods, two fantastic, phenomenal actors. I've been thinking about them, and I'm worried about them. Having said that, God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Unless there's an objection from my colleagues, I'd like to move items 6 through 11 on consent. Seeing no objection, colleagues, that'll be the order. And we will now move to item number 1. If you would read item number 1 into the record.
Item number 1 is a report from the City Controller, Mayor, and Council President relative to the 2013 Industrial, Economic, and Administrative Survey of the Los Angeles World Airports conducted by an independent qualified organization.
And we have invite Dr. Gayla Krajich and Hartso from KH Consulting to the table.
Right. So I just want to see what the magic is for projecting. Oh, easy enough.
It's the old lens cap trick. Oldest trick in the book.
Got it. Low technology, it works.
Gotta put it in focus, so I believe, right?
It's not blurry, it's just you.
They had tested it beforehand. Does anybody know the equipment?
Jim hadn't told him.
I'll go ahead and proceed in the interest of your time,
Great, thank you.
but it's not projected. You're gonna, but it's not projecting from the machine. It's your machine, so.
Showing, what do you call it?
I can move.
Oh, you have two screens.
Oh, there you go.
Well, that's great clarity. You think they put it somewhere else?
It's on a second, to see, here's the second part of the display over here.
Well, normally you just hit here, but nothing is going up through.
Well, we can either, we can move to item 2 while you work on that, or you're all set.
Well, they now have it.
Great.
Thank you very much.
No
Sorry to
problem.
have created a delay.
No problem.
So good
Go right ahead.
afternoon. I am Gayla Krajich Hartso. I am president of KH Consulting Group and was the project director for the Industrial, Economic, and Administrative Survey of Los Angeles World Airport. I'm going to use the term IEA survey because using the full title is complex. I also want to thank the Innovation Grants, Trade, Commerce, and Technology Committee for providing me with the opportunity to share with you your report. I brought with me the report. I know that every council member has been given a copy, and I'm going to basically walk you through the best way for you to use this report is going forward as sort of a reference document and a workbook. The actual IEA study spanned 8 months and involved a KH team of 11 consultants. As further background, the IEA survey is a mandated requirement of the city charter. There are 3 joint administrators that are assigned in the oversight of the project and includes representatives from the Office of the Mayor, the Controller, and the City Council, actually handled by the Chief Legislative Analyst's Office. When we approach this survey, it's not a traditional audit. It really is an overview, and we really are focusing more on LAWA's accountability and management of its operations. The report itself is divided into 3 parts. Part 1 is managing and delivering services at LAWA. Part 2 is really measuring and improving, which I will get into in greater depth. And Part 3 is implementation and monitoring the recommendations and going forward. LAWA was actively involved, even though this was a third-party audit. We conducted over 85 interviews and had 50 people in working groups. The CEO, Deborah Flynn, has already begun to implement some of the recommendations and address issues raised such as the organizational structure. In total, there are 30 recommendations in the report. I could spend our entire time going through strengths. I feel we're in a good position to appreciate the major progress at LAWA because we performed the last 2 IEA surveys in 1999 and 2008. The highlights are covered in 13 pages of chapter in the report. Probably the most major transformation is that of Tom Bradley Terminal and the various concessions. The Airport Response Control Center was another initiative we felt was very noteworthy given that it's a key hub for managing airside and landside operations going forward. When we began the study and we talked to the joint administrators, they were very interested in moving to more performance measurements for LAWA. And so this report, again, is different because you're going to see it's very heavily driven by data. What we found was LAWA collects substantial quantities of data. Some divisions have performance measurement systems, but we found there was a lot of challenges at LAWA in how you develop a complete measurement system for monitoring their operations. Except for its modernization program, LAWA has not formally identified its strategic priorities with measurements. Divisions do not routinely share data, making it more challenging for cross-functional initiatives such as the guest experience. Some other data efforts are very labor-intensive, or the data are just not available. And I just will show you sort of a quick mathematical overview of how these measurements can become incredibly large. If we just wanted to measure something as simple as shuttle services, what you're going to find is we could break it down by car rental services, hotel shuttles, off-site parking, LAWA parking shuttles. And then if we want to just look at the 3 peak periods and 7 days a week, you end up with a total of 672 measurements. Right now, LAWA does not have systems to help them manipulate the data and to look at trends and to really understand how to use the information. So data itself has become overwhelming in many areas. So what we did is we decided to develop some balanced scorecard prototypes for LAWA to consider in going forward. The balanced scorecard model is considered a best practice in corporate America. Given that LAWA is a proprietary department, we felt it was very appropriate. We had 50 LAWA representatives that we worked on in each of the 7 balanced scorecards. The first step was to agree on what was important to measure, followed by how to measure it, and then LAWA gathered the data, which we then compiled into the balanced scorecards, and you see in this report. You'll see a lot of NAs. NA means LAWA lacks the data. The purpose of this whole effort is to really help build and drive an evidence-based decision-making culture at LAWA. Quickly, just to give you an idea of the kind of data that you'll find, and finance is probably the most complete example of a balanced scorecard, is it will show you some historical data so you have some trends. It helps set targets in terms of where the improvements should be made. And the balanced scorecard doesn't just give financial metrics, but also gives metrics in other areas such as customer experience, guest experience, how employees are trained and developed. And again, all of these measurements are reported in Part 2. In developing the prototypes, an area that this new CEO, Deborah L. Flint, is interested in is corporate social responsibility. And I truly believe if LAWA can embark on a corporate social responsibility model, they will be a role model for other city departments. You'll see in this slide the 4 areas that we really focused on in terms of corporate social responsibility, and we developed measurements for the top 2, economic and fiscal impact, as well as environmental responsibility. The public holds the unspoken but widespread belief that the economic and social benefits of air travel outweigh the environmental impacts. But this is a very delicate balance because we also are aware of the big picture in terms of environmental impact and global warming. So again, measurements in these 2 areas were important. This will give you an example of some of the measurements, and this is not an area that LAWA routinely monitors or measures. I believe the last one was done by the Economic Development corporation about 5 years ago. They're looking for an update. So many of these data are the most recent ones available. And this just gives you an idea of the kinds of financial impact and benefits that LAWA has. $1.2 billion in terms of local suppliers benefit by LAWA, and of that, $0.8 million remains in the city. It generates $92.7 million in LA County taxes and employs a large number of people that have a major impact of $1.2 billion in terms of local household income. Again, this slide just gives you a highlight of some of the metrics in the environmental responsibility area. A key point I want to make here is we've noticed that LAWA is now making a transition in the environmental arena from one of compliance with regulations to a more cohesive approach to sustainability and appreciating the airport's reality. The other thing they're doing is they're making some very aggressive efforts to seek Level 3 accreditation through the Airport Council International for achieving carbon reduction. And they've targeted and set standards for the greenhouse gas emission reductions. So you'll see a number of recommendations in the area of corporate social responsibility. Another area we focused on heavily is what's called the guest experience. It was a mayoral priority of Mayor Garcetti. And guest is really defined here very broadly. It's not just passengers. It's also what we might call the meeters and greeters, the people who go to the airport to pick up passengers or to meet with friends. You'll see here a number of initiatives that LAWA had already started last January. We see this as a very important effort that they should continue. Our work was very timely because their working group had already identified the need for better measurements for the guest experience. For guest experience, we divided the measurements into two categories. One we call core services, and these are basically expected of all airports. They must be safe and secure. They must have efficient movement to and within the terminal. They have to offer clean, well-maintained facilities, and they have to fly to cities that passengers want to go to at times that are convenient. If airports don't meet these thresholds, it doesn't matter what else they do. To be world-class is really on top of having achieved the core. World-class are those features that heighten the guest experience by making the airport friendly, easy to navigate, and enjoyable. And international airports are gateways to metropolitan areas, and these factors distinguish truly excellent airports. When you arrive at LAX, you really want the sense of LA, of where you've arrived, and that great element in terms of what our city represents. You'll find again in part 2 metrics. Here are some highlights of metrics for core services. Again, it gives you an idea of the kinds of activities taking place. You'll find measurements also on the guest experience. The guest experience is a complicated one, which this map shows you. It's intentionally busy because the airport is incredibly busy. All those color codes identify who might be sources of data to really understand what the guest experience is. When you arrive at the airport, there's going to be data that different government agencies, such as LADOT, can track in terms of traffic. As you go and you park, there's going to be a different kind of experience. The airlines will handle the check-in, TSA getting through, security. So to evaluate the amount of time it takes for someone entering the CTA and being able to park, get to their gate, is an important effort that we feel LAWA needs to do and to try to keep it as streamlined as possible. When guests also arrive, they do not distinguish when they encounter an employee. Was that an LAWA employee? Was it an airport employee? Was it a contractor, TSA? All they know is what their experience was. We are encouraging LAWA to work with app companies and others to help document and help have diverse and alternative ways for people to move through the area. There's a whole section, well, let me also talk about the dashboard. The controller got very excited about the data, about the information, and he has created on his website called the LAWA dashboard. It presents graphically some of the data in our report and other information that he has pulled together from the checkbook. Some of it will be very handy for users of LAWA, others sort of fun facts about how much money is spent on dog food in terms of canine patrol. The dashboard itself was recognized recently in the Wall Street Journal for its transparency and fun facts that they shared. The balance of the report goes into sort of internal measurements and improvements in preparing for the modernization and I don't plan to get into those details unless you're interested. We also have metrics in terms of administrative support areas such as human resources, procurement, internal audit, and finance. In total, there are 30 recommendations, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have. Here's the list of recommendations. I guess it's further down.
Yeah, I'd say what's the main top 3 recommendations?
I think the guest experience is a very important one. In 2008, we, in many ways, looked at LAX as comparable to a third world nation. When we looked at the Bangkok airport and they were building light rail to the airport, we asked them why, and they said because we don't want to be considered a third world nation. This next modernization is very important in terms of building the people mover to connect with LA Metro that will provide greater access in and out of the airport. So that initiative is clearly a high priority. Moving the guest experience then to world class will be very important. LAWA has achieved it in terms of the Bradley terminal, in terms of the new concessions, the open area, some new modernization in terms of processing you through custom patrol, border patrol, but the same experience is not consistent in the other terminals. So I think it's important that they continue with that effort. On a very personal level, I also have to applaud them on corporate social responsibility. This is going to be tough for them, of how you balance the environmental impact with the economic benefits of the airport in making decisions, how you take revenue that you generate and reinvest it in greener options to be more environmentally responsible. So again, I think it will bring a different kind of thinking and decision-making process if they truly embrace it at LAWA. So I would put those as the top priorities.
And is there anything in the sort of short-term priorities of
Yeah.
things that they need to be doing? Those are all the sort of big picture,
Right.
long-term stuff.
So the 30 recommendations are all designed to be initiated in the next 2 years. There's some that can be completed. There's some areas in the administrative area that are very straightforward and could be accomplished in the next 6 months. One area we were concerned was internal audit itself had not had the kind of attention that it required. They were not doing many high-priority independent audits. The audit committee of the Board of Airport Commissioners had been basically dormant, so we've asked that BOAC reinvigorate the audit committee and come up with an audit plan, and that should be something that they can implement right away.
Let's see. And how is this report different than the ones 5 years ago and 10 years ago?
Wow. So the world changed a lot. In 1999, we were looking at what was then 4 airports. Palmdale actually had some flights. We were looking at sort of a different world in terms of LAWA really trying to get their master plan approved. They'd gone through 15 years of struggles to come up with a plan, none of which got implemented. In 2008, we then had 9/11, so security was a big issue in terms of how to keep the core service of a safe and secure airport going forward. We also, in that report, looked at Van Nuys in detail, Ontario in detail, as well as LAX. In this case, we were asked to focus primarily on LAX, develop metrics for them, and then use the model for the other airport Van Nuys. In 2008, we also did a lot of international benchmarking and also benchmarking on regional airports for Ontario. There's only one airport comparable to Van Nuys, and that's Teterboro. Between Teterboro, New York, and Van Nuys, they represent over 50% of the general aviation movement in America. So again, it's hard to do much more extensive benchmarking. So those were some of the themes that were quite different. Typically, the survey would be a much broader one. So this one was very different because they wanted data. And what this will give you is some baseline data now in 2016. So when you do a future IAA survey, you actually have data to know where the airport was, and you can see the progress made against these metrics. We're also encouraging that LAWA embrace measurement and use the measurement to extend it to their other divisions and to make it part of their culture. So again, you can have more quantitative understanding of what's going on. What are the trends? What are the changes? Why are these numbers changing? So again, I think that would be a big change as well.
colleagues? Any other additional questions for Dr. Krajicz? And I want to note we're joined by Councilwoman Martinez. It's great, thank you. And maybe we could bring Lawa to the table as well, if there's additional comments. Thank you very much for their presentation. There's a lot of good information. So just wanted to check in with you guys if you had any comments about the overall plan and if you've reviewed the implementation plan in the survey. And
thank you. Samson Mengistu, Chief Operating Officer. We have officially embraced this survey audit. We anticipate a good majority of the recommendations will be implemented. In fact, we have implemented some of them already. Our Board of Airport Commissioners, this was presented to them at the last meeting, and they expect us to have a full accounting of the recommendations, and will be providing that in the next 45 to 60 days.
Great. Any additional questions for Lawa? Seeing no questions, my colleagues, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And this was a note and file item, so we will now move to item number 2. Mr. Espinosa, would you read the item into the record?
Item number 2 is a motion from Councilmembers Blumenfield, Wesson, Harris, and Harris-Dawson relative to reviewing the grants ordinance and recommendations on streamlining the process and maximizing grant funding opportunities.
Great. Now, on this one, we heard an overview of the internal grants process from the Department of Aging in the past, Economic Workforce Department. The goal here is to get all of the grants coordinators of each department to take a look at the grant ordinance and provide recommendations to streamline the process. We're really just getting this group together. I don't know that it needs a lot of discussion. I think if we're all on the same page, we can move forward with this. Any colleagues, any objection to that? It's simply getting the group together to have a discussion about grants as we've talked about in the last meeting. Seeing no objection, we'll adopt the recommendation, which is the recommendation here is to continue the motion, instruct the departments named in the motion to report with recommendations for streamlining the grants management process.
Move the recommendation.
Okay, it's moved, not objected, so we'll move on to item number 3.
Item number 3 is a report from the City Administrative Officer relative to Innovation Fund funding and implementation steps for the Board of Public Works Clean LA contest.
Ms. Swan?
Good afternoon. I'm Bianca Swan, Project Coordinator for the Innovation and Performance Commission.
I love your commission, by the way. Absolutely. I'm excited every time they come here, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We're really happy to
Like
hear
I'm
that.
thinking out loud.
We appreciate that. Thank you. At the request of the committee, the Board of Public Works has revised the outreach component of its Clean LA contest submission, now incorporating partnership options with additional community organizations. Myself, along with Representative Fernando Campos, Executive Officer for the Board of Public Works, is here to answer any questions you may have.
So if I could, Fernando Campos, Executive Officer with the Board of Public Works, we took your suggestions and comments that we heard last time when we were here at your committee, and we incorporated those parameters into our guidelines. We went back and revamped our program, not only the timeline, but also looked at ways that we can incorporate partnerships with community groups and organizations that are not necessarily with the neighborhood councils. The revision or the modification to the proposed plan now would allow a neighborhood council to be the applicant for the enrollment into the contest, but we also are allowing community groups to be the primary applicant to enroll into this contest. In addition to that, we are requesting that each applicant have at least 2 partnership agreements with other agencies. The attachment that's before you has a list of about 10, 12 different agencies that they can partner up with. And so the idea behind this is that every entry will have at least 3 partnerships, one with a neighborhood council with 2 community groups, or vice versa. If it's a community group, they would have 2 additional partners.
And how would that work if I understand the money with the neighborhood councils, but let's say some homeowners group decides to apply and they have 2 other groups. How does the money work in that case when it's not a city entity?
So we wrestled with this question as we were revamping the program guidelines to incorporate your suggestions. And the only way to allow a community group to be participating or to participate into the contest is that they have to have a valid tax identification number. We would have to require them to submit a W-9 form. In addition to that, they would have to have a slew of requirements such as insurance or indemnification waivers on file. It's a lot easier for us with the neighborhood councils to transact this type of innovation idea and move it forward in a lot faster pace. However, using the community groups, we can still incorporate them, but they would have to provide us the necessary information to actually award the money at the end of the contest.
So either it's a neighborhood council with 2 community groups, or it's some sort of a nonprofit or some group that has
Tax
wherewithal
ID,
to do
insurance,
all of those
et cetera. Neighborhood councils right now currently are waived. They have all the requirements satisfied with the city, so we can easily transfer the monies over to their accounts. We would have the internal controls to make sure that the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment are spending the monies in accordance to city policy. The community groups would have to provide us additional information. So we will go through additional steps, but we can do it. It's just additional work for us, but we're definitely happy to incorporate the partnership idea into this contest.
colleagues. Any additional questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you remind me what you're all doing to promote this contest? What are the strategies in place to get the word out so people can apply?
So the community outreach event will include not only developing flyers and sending them out to the neighborhood councils, but we also plan to hire, and we are actually now starting to onboard an intern that would be dedicated for the outreach event and also be the liaison. So we will leverage our neighborhood councils. We will leverage our public works liaisons, which we have 96. We will also leverage our Clean Street Heroes, folks that are specialists in this area for cleaning up neighborhoods and doing the workshop. So we will move that through our public affairs office. In addition to that, we will leverage the community outreach group with the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment.
Please tap into the respective council offices as well. We have a great
Absolutely.
network, newsletters that get blasted every week and every month, so thank you.
We will do so.
Great. Seeing no additional questions, recommendation is to approve the CAO recommendations. And without objection, that'll be the order. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we'll move to item number 4. Now, there's been a request from Chief Terrazas to hold this item in committee pending further coordination with LASA. So my ask is that we hold this item, we continue this item without objection. We'll move on to item number 5.
Did he ask for how long?
He did not ask for a specific date, so we're putting it on hold, continuing it at this point, and we'll coordinate with the chief and others if they, assuming they want to bring it back to us, which I think they want to, but great. Thank you. Item number 5.
And Mr. Chair, prior to hearing item number 5, would you like to reconsider item number 6 through 11 now that the council member Martinez is?
Oh, sure. Great idea. We had a quorum, but this is makes good sense. So ask for reconsideration of items 6 through 11. Seeing no objection, those items will be reconsidered. Ask to take items 6 through 11 on consent, noting that there are four council members are present. Seeing no objection, those items are listed on consent. Thank you very much for that. And now we'll move on to item number 5.
Item number 5 is a motion from council members Buscaino and Blumenfield relative to the status and progress of the $3 million Economic Development and Administrative Grant application for the Alta Sea Redevelopment Project.
Good afternoon. Mike DiBernardo with the Port of Los Angeles, along with Doan Liu with the Port of Los Angeles. This is in regards to Alta Sea and a filing of an EDA grant. And we received a memo from Alta Sea that they have submitted an application for the EDA grant. It was submitted on March 31st, so they are waiting for further information about confirmation of receiving that grant. For the Port of Los Angeles, we will continue to work with our Board of Harbor Commissioners, and we plan to discuss it with them at our next board meeting in May. Any further questions?
Start with Mr. Buscaino.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Mike. I appreciate the update. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for partnering with me on this motion. The EDA is an incredible resource that we can leverage on infrastructure improvement projects. Just recently at the National League of Cities Conference in Washington, D.C., they had amazing breakout session on the positive impacts the EDA has on a number of cities across the country. Here, of course, Alta-C, we have an opportunity to apply for a $3 million grant, provide critical infrastructure improvements to rehab a portion of the East Channel at City Dock 1. And if, just wondering if, one, I'd like to actually bring up Alta-C. We have here Sean and Krista. And while they're coming up, can maybe the port, Mike, Mr. DiBernardo, can you explain to the committee, well, not explain, but actually offer some other recommendations? I mean, there are other EDA opportunities for the port to apply for as well, or don't?
Actually, Doan's going to be.
Sure. I mean, just off the top of my head, I can think of some waterfront opportunities that might be applicable to the EDA grant. So, there's been talk about relocating the Iowa. So perhaps there's an opportunity for some dredge we can't use regular dredging grants from DOT, but this might apply, or fendering or wharf reinforcements for moving the Iowa. Crafted, as you know, has a parking lot and lighting issue that they're facing. That's another opportunity. I don't know if it qualifies under their infrastructure grants, but that'd be another good one. So there's a number of opportunities on the waterfront side. I also think there's probably a number of opportunities on the cargo side as well, since they are economic development grants. And so there might be some opportunities on the Wilmington side, as well as Terminal Island.
Thanks, John. So we have with us Alta-C. Please identify yourselves. And
my name is Sean Jensen. I'm the Manager of Government Funding and Program Partnerships.
And Krista Swingle, Manager of Operations and Finance.
thank you so much. Can you just walk us through the application process and how we got to where we're at today? Any other folks that came to the table to assist in this application, consultants, please share that with us.
Sure, just a brief background.
You can also you can share your memo that was what was just handed to us to the committee.
Sure, and thank you for having us here. Just as a quick background and update, we did, as Doan mentioned, submit our final application for the $3 million grant. The grant will provide critical infrastructure improvements for a portion of the East Channel, the wharf on the East Channel, and essential improvements to the exterior of warehouses 58 through 60. These wharf reinforcements are critical as they will allow for 3 research vessels to dock at Alta-C and will also provide additional load capacity to accommodate the installation and use of a crane for loading and offloading of research equipment. These improvements also include removing existing railroad tracks, addition of parking, entryways, signage, water, sewer, and restrooms. As far as the updates with the grant itself, the first part of a 2-part application was originally submitted on December 23rd and was received with very strong positive response. Alta-C was then invited to submit the final full application package by April 4th, which was submitted on March 31st, and we did receive email confirmation that it has been received. An investment review committee for EDA meets quarterly, and they're scheduled to review Alta-C's application mid-April. And applicants should receive written notification from EDA within 60 days of receipt. We've been working on the grant for about 4 or 5 months now with a group of 5 different consultants and invested about $120,000 in the application.
And do we have anyone on the ground in D.C. that's going to nudge EDA to help influence this decision?
Well, we do. We have
a team of lobbyists, and we've received positive.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, colleagues, we talk about waterfront development. I believe Alta-C is a critical piece to redevelopment efforts along the water line. We are doing everything we can to diversify the workforce, increase the housing stock, and we feel that give us that ability to do just that. I'm just reading this memo from Altaci. I'm encouraged. I'm excited to know that we already have MOUs that have been entered with Altaci, Catalina Sea Ranch, Dr. Ballard bringing the Nautilus this winter, Sea Trek, Blue Robotics, and most recently a letter of intent to execute an MOU with Boeing's Advanced Technology Programs. I understand that also communication continues with JPL. We talk about Silicon Harbor, how Altaci will bring these blue tech, green tech jobs along the waterfront. I feel this EDA is a great opportunity. These grants are, through the EDA, is a great opportunity. And to Mr. Liu's point, the potential to apply for more EDA grants, there are a number of other potential projects, which I'd like to, we can work with the port in listing those potential projects. And if I can, Mr. Chairman, maybe hold this in committee and have the Harbor Department and or even other outside economic development consultants prepare a list of these potential projects that we can apply for. Yes.
In a recent meeting we also had with EDA, they were very interested in increasing port projects to their portfolio. And he mentioned that in a meeting that we had with
Oh,
him.
fantastic. So we know that. You go with that, Mr. Liu?
We'd be happy to work with you and your staff on these applications.
So just to be clear, you're asking for a list of potential port EDA projects, or
Yeah, that was
Altaci
right
related?
aside from Altaci.
Aside from Altaci, okay. I'm happy to do that as part of the
I
recommendation.
just want to see us come back here again.
I love seeing your face.
Now, explain to me. Thank you. The port is technically part of this application, or just sort of behind the scenes? How does that work?
So in order to get the funds, at some point, the port would be a co-applicant for the funds. And so we're in discussions with Altaci about some indemnity language and things of that nature.
The what language?
Indemnity language, in case there's some issues down the road. So we're working with that, and we do have to discuss it with our board before we bring it back for approval.
But,
my understanding. Okay.
But the application went in not listing the port as a co-applicant, or how does that?
In the narrative, the Port of Los Angeles is described as a co-applicant, a partner of the project. And when we get to the final award process, and hopefully a successful award process, they will ask for the port to sign the award letter.
To sign the award and be the conduit of the funds?
All funds and grant management will be done through Altaci. It would be more of an acknowledgement of being part of the application along with Altaci.
We have our general counsel here, Jana. I can't see you from here. You nodding your head, or?
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine.
Wasn't paying attention.
Okay, that's fine.
Just
Go ahead, Mike.
There's a certain level of commitments that has to be done with the EDA grants. So if there's some things that fail during that period, we want to make sure that the port is protected from any issues.
I mean, quite simply, the improvements that will be made with the money that is given in the grant are made on port property. So that's why the port needs to be the co-applicant. Our board hasn't had a chance to review the application or even meet before this application was due. So we're planning on meeting discussing this at our next meeting. And EDA was fine with having Altaci as submitting the application, mentioning the port as a future co-applicant. It will require a MOU between the port and Altaci when the grant is finally awarded.
Good afternoon, committee members. Charini Petty-Banda Glazer-Weil on behalf of Altaci. And just to reiterate what Mr. Liu was saying, Altaci is working very closely with the port, continues to work closely. Our firm was recently brought in to help with this issue as well. So we are working with the port and their staff and the EDA and their attorneys as well to come to a resolution.
Great.
Fantastic.
Well, in as much as the port is part of the city, we can also activate our city lobbyist in D.C. in addition to the folks that they have here. But,
So maybe perhaps if we can, if it's okay with the port, first meeting in June or so, first or second IT, I still can't get this right, IGTCT meeting in June or so, first or second one, we can put together a list and
Sounds good.
You good with that? Okay.
Great. So we will continue this item then, pending a future report on other potential EDA grants that the port would apply for. Great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I mean, the other option is
We have to stay down.
adopt this and do another one, but
I know, I would have it.
it's fine.
Sitting here. I can always do an motion.
It's all good. Okay, as we discussed, items 6 through 11 were approved on consent, so we're going to move to item 12. There are no additional public comment cards other than ones we've heard on this item. Correct?
On this item, no.
Yeah. So, asked for a briefing on this item. This was a subject of some newspaper articles recently. The actual item, was approved before the majority of the council members were on the city council, and certainly the majority of the members were on this committee. This is something, though, that is a litigation issue, so we're going to recess to closed session to discuss this item. So, Mr. Dundas, if you would walk us through that process and read the admonishment for closed session.
Sure. Mike Dundas, City Attorney's Office. The committee shall recess into closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1 in order to confer with legal counsel relative to the cases entitled Fast Lane Transportation, Inc. v. City of Los Angeles et al., Contra Costa County Superior Court Case Number CIVM-SN 14-0300, consolidated with California Cartage Company, Inc. et al. v. City of Los Angeles et al., City of Long Beach v. City of Los Angeles et al., Coalition for a Safe Environment et al. v. City of Los Angeles et al., East Yard Communities for Environmental Justice et al. v. City of Los Angeles et al., Long Beach Unified School District v. City of Los Angeles et al., and South Coast Air Quality Management District v. City of Los Angeles et al., and including intervention by the City of Carson, dismissed, and the California Attorney General. This matter involves California Environmental Quality Act and due process challenges to the approval of the Southern California International Gateway Project.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, can you repeat that? No. Also, the mayor's office has, the mayor's office is asked to have a representative here. I don't have a problem with that. I'm happy to have them here. Any objection from council members to have the mayor's office present with us? Seeing no objection, we're happy to have you here.
Thank you for objecting.
Oh. And we will, I'll wait till I get the signal of the room. Oh, I'm sorry, what?
She's with DNS.
No.
Oh.
No.
What's that?
BNSF would not be part of our closed session.
No, they can't be part of the closed session. You can comment if we'd actually need a card if you want to comment. When we'll open it up after the closed session is over. Thank you. Okay, we're on the air. We're just going back into open session. There was no action item on item 12. That was merely a report. Mr. Clerk, is there any additional items before us?
I do believe we have one public comment card.
One general public comment card. That's Ms. Ramirez. Again. So we have a final public comment, a general public comment from Antonio Ramirez. Ms. Ramirez, let the record reflect she is not here for public comment. Anything additional before us?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, with that, this hearing is adjourned. Thank you all.